alluded to a possible NFL career because he played in college, in high school, in fact, as a tight end.
Yep. He played 2 years of high school ball, and it's not like there hasn't been a former athlete that's run a team before. I mean, just recently, Derek Jeter led a group that bought the Florida Marlins, and now there's
Magic Johnson, basically.
Magic Johnson, who helps to run the Dodgers, in addition to the Lakers, and also Mario Lemieux runs the Penguins.
Exactly. Or Joe Sakic with the Colorado Avalanche. I'm just saying, it's true. There are people, foreign players, who can help revitalize their teams. Now, I'm just going to quickly go through the last 2 games of Week 7. The Bengals lost to the Steelers 29-14. Pitiful second half. The Steelers held the Bengals to 19 total yards in the second half. That's sad right there. And Antonio Brown had some big touchdowns. The Cowboys destroyed C.J. Beathard and the 49ers, especially Beathard in his first NFL start. You know what he got for his first start? Sacked 5 times, 2 lost fumbles, and the only score he had was at the end of the game when it didn't matter. And Dak Prescott had 3 touchdowns, including a 72-yarder to Ezekiel Elliott. The Cowboys won 40-10.
You would not believe how low things have gotten for the 49ers. Do you know that their public relations office gave out surveys, typewritten surveys to all of the fans? You would not believe one of the questions that was asked in that survey.
Typewritten? What were we, in the 20th century? You never heard of email? Or, how about an app sending to fans?
Well, get this. They actually asked fans if winning games was an important part of the fan experience at the stadium.
Was there a place where you can write in the comment section, no blank?
Or how about this? Duh.
That too. That's a nicer way of saying it. But believe me, the average fan would have said the former. Especially when you hear fans in the stands, they talk in such colorful terminology. And I wouldn't be shocked if the fans in Santa Clara are not thrilled with the product that they see before them, even with the new general manager in John Lynch. Talk about a former player right there. And then, and a guy, I think he's a Hall of Famer too.
Yeah, he made the Hall of Fame after playing in the secondary with the Buccaneers and the Broncos.
And you have Kyle Shanahan, the offspring, of course, of Mike Shanahan, a great coach. In fact, it's just really bad. And how about another trumping this week? The Broncos lost 21-0 to the Chargers. 2 touchdowns to Travis Benjamin, a punt return 65-yarder, and a 42-yarder in the fourth quarter.
Break up the Chargers? After losing 4 in a row, they've now won, is it 3 or 4 in a row?
3 in a row.
What is going on with the Chargers now?
The defense is actually, you got Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, who are a great combo in that pass rush in the front 7 right there. You also are seeing Todd Gurley running the ball effectively. There are moments, though, that they do give you some eyesores where they had several.
Todd Gurley or Melvin?
Melvin Gordon.
Melvin Gordon.
Wrong LA team. Melvin Gordon, former Wisconsin star, who's really scoring scoring too as well. And finally, the 2 New York teams. The Jets had yet another 14-point lead for the second consecutive week. Could not do it and lost 31-28, especially in that boneheaded, ill-advised interception by Josh McCown at their own 27.
This is exactly why they need to make a change at quarterback, because Josh McCown continues to defy all logic. But that's not the reason why they lost this game. The reason why they lost this game was because the defense blew a 14-point lead. How? Because their secondary wound up getting shredded.
2 touchdowns to, I believe it was Kenny Stills, and they were tied, and Matt Moore came in after Jay Cutler was hurt in the first half with a rib injury, which prevented him from playing last night. And believe me, that was talk about a total eyesore last night's game. But the Giants, oh God, I really now want to puke my guts out because Russell Wilson shredded the Giants secondary to a tune of 3 second-half touchdowns, including the 38-yard to Paul Richardson. It was like a flea flicker. J.D. Kissick gives the ball, lofts it to Russell Wilson. Russell throws it down the left side to Paul Richardson, and at the same time, Paul and Eli Apple had the ball, but you know what? Simultaneous possession, 99.9% always goes to the receiver.
And to think the Giants actually had a lead after 3 quarters. But what happens? Again, defense could not get even a sniff of Russell Wilson.
And the only touch
Because he wound up running circles around, running through, running over, running under the Giant defense.
And that's the pitiful. That's some of the games of Week 7. Now let's go to Week 8. On the bye, the Arizona Cardinals. See what they can do with Stan. Packers. Work Hundley out, get him better. Jaguars. Please be consistent on winning. The Rams.
This could be a really good time for the Jaguars to have their bye week, because that means they don't have to lose this week. Now, let's see what happens the week after.
Week 9, they'll win. They win in the odd weeks. They lose in the even weeks. So at least they're coming back to an odd week. So we know right there, I think we got to win. The Rams scoring points in bunches, and I can't wait to see what they do to the Giants next week.
Oh, brother.
Speaking of the Giants, they're going to really need to evaluate their receivers and come up with a better game plan.
They need to evaluate their receivers, their offensive line, their running game, and their secondary. And also do something about the linebackers, too, because this trio of linebackers that they have is not getting it done for me. Or for the team, for that matter.
And the Titans, I want to see more points scored, and
more consistency too,
and more involvement in Derrick Henry. Honestly,
yeah,
you really need to get him more involved in the game. Now, last night, as we mentioned in the beginning, which we won't get into more detail, Dolphins got the snot kicked out of them, 40-0.
Oh,
it was an embarrassment for football, for this team, this franchise. Even though it's the same thing, still, it was an eyesore. It was a complete screw job, and C.J. Mosley gets this pitiful pass from Matt Moore, and he's able to go in 56 yards. You know, it's the first time C.J. Mosley ever scored on a pick six.
Wow.
Yeah, so...
He can thank Matt Moore for that, because Matt Moore basically did his impersonation of a backup quarterback.
Yeah, screwing up in every which way possible. And Kiko Alonso, you should be suspended for what you did to Flacco. That was just dirty. That was a dirty hit.
They're not going to suspend him because they're going to think that it was probably a legal play, which is questionable in my eyes. But now Joe Flacco's in concussion protocol, and now the Ravens are in serious trouble.
Here we go. Let's go into the games. Falcons visiting the Jets at MetLife Stadium. This is going to be an epic battle.
This is going to be a really interesting matchup, because you have a Falcons team that's reeling, and you also have a Jets team that's coming off a loss that, quite frankly, never should have happened. Logic says the Falcons are better offensively. They've got the better quarterback, the better running game, the better core of receivers.
But the Steve Sarkisian offense is not scoring the amount of points they did. Last year, they led the league with 33 points. They're only scoring 21.8 this season. Mm-hmm. So they are keying on the former USC coach and what he's doing offensively with this Falcons team. Not like what they did with Kyle Shanahan. But this week, I really think we're going to see plenty of Tevin Coleman, combination of him and Devonta Freeman. They're going to really screw with the Jets on their defense. I see the Falcons winning this game. I know I'm wearing a Jets jersey, but honestly, doesn't mean I'm not going to be objective, folks. I don't see the Jets winning this game. I see a touchdown victory for Matt Ryan. He's going to cut down the mistakes.
For some strange reason, I'm thinking to myself, maybe the Jets come away with a victory in this one. But at the same time, the Falcons are just better. Better offensively. Defensively, they've been a major disappointment. Whereas the Jets have been basically treading water, although this past weekend was a complete letdown for them. I'll say Atlanta, but exercise caution.
Steelers, Lions, Sunday Night Football, the place where Roethlisberger won the first of his 2 career Super Bowls, 21-10 against the Seahawks. This time he's playing against the Lions team coming off their bye week. Several bad losses, close losses that the Lions have had. Now they're going to get some of their receivers back, but again, they're playing against a Steelers team that can run the ball up the gut, especially Le'Veon Bell. You got a good array of receivers, including Juju Smith-Schuster, the rookie. And they're not going to have Martavis Bryant, who's opened his mouth this week, wants to be traded.
Yeah, and because of that, he's going to get benched. And speaking of trades, the deadline is on Halloween. So if you're into fantasy football at all, I think now is as good a time as any for you to start making some really serious trades for the second half of the year. As far as who wins this game, Pittsburgh, I think, has the better quarterback because Ben Roethlisberger is so much more accomplished than Matt Stafford is. And Stafford's had a pretty decent career, but quite frankly, I feel that Big Ben is the more accomplished quarterback. Plus, they have the better running game, so that's why I say Pittsburgh wins this one.
I'm going Pittsburgh as well, but do exercise caution against Glover Quinn. Look out for his matchup with Antonio Brown for sure. That's going to be something to look out for. But Juju Smith, 2 touchdowns. I like the Steelers in this one. Now, Texans, the other big game this week. Texans visiting the Seahawks. This is good for so many reasons, too. This is the biggest test for Deshaun Watson coming off the bye week in a very loud, crazy environment like CenturyLink Field in the Emerald City. He's going to be practicing this week with silent counts, for sure. That's going to be the game plan for the Texans offense. As for the Seahawks, defensively, this is a team that gives up the least amount of points in the league overall, passes per attempt, passing yards surrendered, yards per play, and you have the trio of the secondary led by Richard Sherman. You know he's going to be all over DeAndre Hopkins in this game.
And I would like to see what Deshaun Watson does against a really established secondary like the one that Seattle has. I think the Seahawks are going to throw a whole bunch of different looks at the rookie. And this is one big test that, quite frankly, he's going to fail miserably. I think that the Seahawks not only win this game, I think they win by double digits.
I'm going to go with the Seahawks, too. We're going to see plenty of Kissick in this game running the ball on this Texans defense. Yep. Now, Cowboys, Redskins, the other 4 o'clock matchup this coming week. I like it's 2 NFC East rivals. However, I am going with the Redskins this week, despite the 3 offensive linemen that are probably going to be injured, despite some of the things that have been going on this year for the Redskins. But this is the week that people are going to underestimate the Redskins, where they think the Cowboys, with all their players, they're going to easily win. I think the Redskins are going to pull it off, especially on the ground, and they're going to come up with some confusing trick plays on defense to really take Dak Prescott out.
Do you know that Will Cain went on ESPN this week and said that the Cowboys were back after beating the 49ers? First off, it's the 49ers.
Anybody can beat them.
And second of all, how can anyone possibly make a definitive pick in this game? Because, for one, you've got 2 500 teams that, quite frankly, are looking really, really average right now because we don't know exactly which team is going to show up. Secondly, I think the Cowboys are better offensively than the Redskins are, and the Cowboys also have the better offensive line than the Redskins do by default, since the Skins are missing guys up front. But I still like the Cowboys in this game. They're just better offensively. Defensively is what I worry about because the Redskins have enough weapons to try and make things really close.
Raiders, Bills. This is going to be an interesting 1 o'clock matchup in Orchard Park right here. You got a Bills defense that's been hitting on all cylinders. Finally, we saw LaShawn McCoy score on the ground last week with those 2 touchdowns against the Buccaneers. For the Raiders, that come from behind victory on Thursday Night Football against, used to be the undefeated Chiefs team that's lost 2 straight. But as for the Raiders to win the way they did, Derek Carr had a 400-yard performance, 2 touchdowns, 2 of his 4 passes went to Amari Cooper. I like the Raiders in this matchup. Even without Marshawn Lynch, you're still going to have plenty. You're going to still have the Raiders scoring bunches. And I'm thinking Amari Cooper is going to have yet another masterful performance.
Is it certain that Carr's going to take the snaps from center? Because if so, then this makes the Raiders the favorite. I just don't like Tyrod Taylor at all as a quarterback. He's just extremely mediocre. For the Bills to win this game, it's going to have to be on the ground. But quite frankly, the Raiders are better offensively. That's why I'm picking Oakland in this one.
Okay, Denver, Kansas City, Monday night. Euphoria for Jamal Charles, who's now a Bronco running back, going back to his old team that he was with for 11 years. The last 2 weren't the most pleasant with the ACL injury and the inflammation in his knee, but he had over 7,200 yards on the ground and over almost nearly 2,500 receiving yards for this franchise that he basically, at one point, carried on his shoulders. Now he gets to go against his old team and try to get the Broncos back on a winning pace after the 2 losses that they've had so far.
Yep.
So right here, I'm going to go with the Broncos. I think we're going to see plenty of Jamal Charles being utilized in this game.
Mm-hmm. And as far as this is concerned, I think Kansas City is slightly better at quarterback. I say slightly better because Alex Smith has kind of regressed this season, but I'll take him over Trevor Siemian any day of the week. That's why I like KC in this one.
Chicago going to the Big Easy, playing the New Orleans Saints.
Another interesting matchup. A rookie going up against a future Hall of Famer in this one.
5,000-yard seasons in his career with them.
Logic says that the Saints win this one because they've got the better quarterback, but Chicago's actually turned a corner a bit. Ever since Trubisky got inserted into the starting lineup, they've played slightly better.
But you have to understand, last week they didn't win because he had only 4 of 7 pass attempts for 100. The biggest play he had was a 70-yard pass at Tarek Cohen. Other than that, honestly, you're going up against a Saints team that has improved running the ball and passing the ball. And you have Alvin Kamara and you got Mark Ingram running the ball. That's a great balance they have there, along with the receivers, with Michael Thomas. And I think even Willie Snead's going to have a performance this week. That's why I like the Saints in the Mercedes-Benz Superdome.
They say that the best defense always beats a good offense, and that's exactly what the Bears have to try and shut down Breeze, but Breeze is just too spectacular, and he's got way too many weapons in this one. That's why I like the Saints here.
You had me going for a second. I thought you were going Chicago. You almost had me like
yeah.
scared.
Bottom line, the Saints are better offensively.
NFC South rivalry matchup. Panthers visiting the Buccaneers. I honestly like Carolina in this one. I think Carolina is going to have a better performance this week. They're going to control the ball. They're not going to turn it over as much as they did. And the Buccaneers are still missing some people defensively. That's why I like Carolina.
Sometimes I worry about Cam Newton because it seems like even when he wins games, he's still in a foul mood. You know, there's been articles written about him online that say maybe this could be the end of the road for Colin Kaepernick, for Cam Newton as an NFL player, simply because of
his immaturity.
Because of his immaturity. But it's hard to give up on someone of his ilk. Not only that, but the Buccaneers have just been extremely disappointing this year. They've had a lot expected out of them. And they've really let down in some big games. Just some silly turnovers have really cost them games. And that's why I'm picking Carolina in this one. I think Carolina can be a little bit more disciplined in this game than Tampa can.
And Tre'Davious White was able to get that fumble off of Winston this past week. Chargers visiting the Patriots. The Chargers have won 3 straight since they beat the Giants, weeks ago. And now, But that, when you got Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa, they're going to have to go up against a guy like Tom Brady, who's a tactician, a strategist, a commander-in-chief on that offense.
And Bill Belichick has actually had some really good words for the gruesome twosome that the Chargers have defensively. Melvin Ingram and Joey Bosa. Interesting that they've won the last 3 games, all of whom have been against teams that, quite frankly, they should have beaten. So now they're taking advantage of the soft part of the schedule.
2 of 3 on the road.
Mm-hmm. And 2 out of 3 on the road. This is a road game as well because they're going into Foxborough. But who are we kidding? This is the Patriots they're going up against. Enough said.
Yeah. There's no, especially Tom Brady and the array running backs. And what I like about the Patriots, they adjust to the teams that they play. They know how to do that. So, yeah, that's why I definitely like the Patriots. Easily 2-touchdown win. Now you have the Colts and the Bengals, 2 teams in desperation mode, need of a victory in the worst possible way. That's why I like the Bengals in this one, in the Queen City.
Yeah. This is such a tough game to pick, though, because both teams have been major disappointments. The Colts more so than the Bengals. I still think that the Bengals might be able to salvage something out of this season. Plus, even though Andy Dalton's been a disappointment, he's more accomplished than whoever the Colts have at quarterback right now, whether it's Jacoby Brissett or somebody else.
If Blake Bortles can shred the Colts secondary for 330 yards without turning the ball over, Andy Dalton could do that and then some.
Yeah.
That's
why I picked Cincinnati in this one.
And then the last 2 games are with winless teams. Speaking of which, the 49ers visiting the Philadelphia Eagles.
I think that goes without saying.
Yeah, the Eagles have the best record in the league. I'm sorry, I keep saying Eagles, but that's how they say it near Broad Street, and I'm going with the Eagles.
You know, when you say Eagles, it sounds like Egos, as in Lego my ego.
Yeah, that's true. But Carson Wentz, 17 touchdowns on the year from the 4 he had on Monday night. I see him throwing for 5 in this game. Yeah.
I could see him doing that too. I could see maybe anybody that's playing running back for the Eagles scoring 5 touchdowns as well. This is going to get really ugly really, really quick.
Yes.
The only difference is the Niners have been close in some of their losses this year. So
5 of their consecutive losses, which has never been done in the NFL, by a combined 15 points.
Yeah. So they should be 5-2 right now instead of 0-7. But the reason why they're 5-2 is because, number one, their offense sucks. It all and out is a complete and utter embarrassment.
Oh, yeah, their 0-7 record is a reflection of some of the mistakes they've made offensively and on defense, especially last week with C.J. Beathard in his first start. Now, Vikings
and Browns in London.
The last one.
The last game to be played in London this year. This goes without saying, too. The Vikings are better. I think our local Pop Warner League team is better than the Browns.
The Farrell is better than them. St. Peter's is better than them. Severi, my old school, is 10 times better than the Cleveland Browns. And I'm not saying that to make fun of those schools. I'm being honest. They are 10 times better than the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns are an utter joke. A Division III team is better than Cleveland.
An NAIA team is better than the Browns.
They had to keep switching between Kaiser and Cody Kessler, and Hogan. It doesn't really matter who they put on the field. They're going to stink it up. They're going to turn the ball over. And Myles Garrett has a concussion. He's not even in this game.
Wow.
So right there, the guy who they had with the top overall in the first round, they couldn't.
Has barely played this year. Barely 2 games.
And that's week 8 for you. Now, coming up this week, week 9 college, which I can't believe I'm saying that, the world's largest outdoor cocktail party, Georgia, Florida, in Jacksonville.
Georgia's been undefeated this season. Let's see if they can keep that streak going against a Florida team that, quite frankly, has disappointed badly. Plus, Jim McElwain could be on the firing line. Do you know that he got a death threat on the phone from a Florida fan this past week?
I heard about it, and I just, it really stuns me. I understand that fan is short for fanatic, and we live vicariously through our teams, and some people are happy when their team succeeds and are upset when their team fails. But there are fans who take it way too far, and this particular fan did that by threatening somebody's life. That is that's going way over the line right there. Any fan does that to me is a coward, a jerk, and some other expletives that I can't say on this network. But it's just wrong to do that.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, just last night there was some action taking place in the Pac-12. Stanford was at Oregon State. Do you know that Oregon State was 24 seconds away from a victory? And what happens? Well, beforehand, Stanford converted an Oregon State fumble and drove down the field about 50 yards and wound up getting the game-winning touchdown. That's number one. Number two, Oregon State is 1-7 this season. Yet somehow the critics have said that Oregon State has played some of their best football recently with their rookie head coach. How do you justify 1-7?
That's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube at times. You cannot justify that whatsoever. But tomorrow we have Penn State, Ohio State.
That's the game of the day right there, Penn State. This is the first really tough test that Penn State has. They already beat Michigan. Now they have to go up against an Ohio State team that still has aspirations of winning the Big Ten.
In the Horseshoe.
Mm-hmm.
A very tough place to play at. And one of the most beautiful stadiums in college football besides the Big House in Ann Arbor.
Mm-hmm.
And I really like this particular, especially with, you got McSorley and you got Barkley right there, the two-headed monster on offense for the Nittany Lions. That's where the Buckeyes defense really going to have to key on those two and try and stop them. You stop those two, you beat the Nittany Lions easily.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't, you lose. How about tomorrow night? Clemson, coming off their disappointing loss in Syracuse, they got played the Yellow Jackets, Georgia Tech, at home in Death Valley.
Mm-hmm.
And you have UCLA, Washington, North Carolina State, Notre Dame. That's another great matchup right there. That, to me, is one of the best games of the week.
A game to be played in South Bend. NC State has been a major surprise this year.
They control their own destiny in the Atlantic Division right now, so with a victory against an independent like Notre Dame could help them. Jamie, it's always fun doing the show with you every single week. You know, I enjoy it.
Thank you. Same here.
And, we get to talk about football, And you know what? We can just do this calmly, and we're having fun, and it's just a fun experience. And I know you folks out there who watch this every week are enjoying this as well, and our banter left and right. Even when we don't agree, we have good conversations.
Yes, we do.
And well, I can't wait to see what the Jets do this week. I hope they can do it against the Falcons.
And the Giant fans don't have to worry about their team playing this week because they have a bye.
Yep, they just got to worry about next week when the Rams come to visit.
Oh, brother.
Well,
I'm going to sign you out, so you take us on home.
All right. As for the Jets, not only do they have to play this week at home against Atlanta, then they got to play Thursday night at home against Buffalo. So they got a heck of a short week coming up. It's going to be crazy to see how they adjust. As for the Giants, they're going to need Manny's going to have to work with the receivers that are left, including with Ingram again. Well, as always, thank you for watching this edition of the Blitz Zone. We'll see you next Friday for another week here on CTV. Good night, peace, and love, Staten Island.